Welcome back to the MasterSense by Faraday community. Today, we're jumping right into a clear, step-by-step explainer on Nigerian Treasury bills. If you've ever heard financial experts tossing around the term T-bills and wondered what the hype is all about, well, you're in the right place. We're going to break down exactly what they are, how they function, and why they might just be that missing puzzle piece in your own financial planning.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be covering what Treasury bills are, why the government needs you, how they actually work, some key terms you definitely should know, and finally, the benefits of investing. Let's dive in.
Section 1. What are Treasury bills? For the longest time, I just thought of investing as buying a tiny slice of a private company in the stock market. But it turns out a Treasury bill, or T-bill for short, kind of flips that whole dynamic on its head. Instead of buying a piece of a company, you actually step into the role of a lender. You are literally lending your money to the government for a strictly defined, limited period of time. And in exchange for your trust and your capital, of course, the government promises to pay you back with a solid return. It's straightforward, it's highly predictable, and honestly, that's exactly why they are so incredibly popular.
Looking at this dynamic, it's actually pretty cool how the pieces fit together. The Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, issues these bills on behalf of the federal government. And then there's you, the investor. Whether you're an everyday individual, a huge institution, or a bank, the money flows from you to the government to help manage their cash flow. Then, after a fixed period of time, boom, that return flows right back into your pocket. It's a fantastic, mutually beneficial relationship built on absolute predictability.
Moving right along to Section 2, why the government needs you.
So the federal government of Nigeria isn't just holding onto your money for fun, right? They use these auctions to raise short-term funds for vital things. We're talking infrastructure projects, public services, and just everyday operational expenses. But here's where it gets super fascinating. The Central Bank of Nigeria actually uses T-bills as a massive monetary policy tool. By issuing these bills, they can manage the overall liquidity in the economy. Think of it like this. If there's way too much cash floating around, which, as we know, can drive up inflation, the CBN can just issue more T-bills to soak up that excess cash straight out of the banking system. It is literally economic management in action. And by participating, you're actually playing a direct role in keeping that macroeconomic balance in check.
All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts in Section 3. How do they actually work?
One of the absolute best things about T-bills is that your money isn't tied up forever. These bills have standard, fixed, short-term maturity periods, which are known as tenors. So you've got options. You can choose a quick 91-day maturity if you just need a safe place to park some cash for a little while. Want a slightly longer horizon? You can opt for the medium-term 182-day lock-in. Or if you're looking to really maximize those potential returns while still keeping it all under a single year, there's the 364-day option. This kind of flexibility is great because it lets you tailor the investment perfectly to your own personal cash flow needs.
Now you might be wondering, without a standard monthly interest payment hitting your account, how do you actually make money on a Treasury bill? This is exactly where a lot of beginners get tripped up. But trust me, it's an incredibly elegant system once you see it.
Here's the secret. Treasury bills are sold at what we call a discount. Basically, that means you don't pay the full price up front. Let's say a T-bill has a final payout value, also known as a face value, of 100,000 naira. You don't actually hand over 100,000 naira today. Instead, you pay a lower, discounted purchase price right at the start. For this example, let's just say you pay 75,000 naira. You hold onto that bill for the agreed holding period, say 364 days, and at maturity, the government hands you the full 100,000 naira.
So, in that specific scenario, your guaranteed profit is exactly 25,000 naira. No guesswork involved. That 25,000 is simply the difference between the discounted upfront payment you made, the 75,000, and the final payout of 100,000. You make your return not through monthly interest checks, but through the built-in capital appreciation of buying at a discount. It's clean, it's clear, and the best part, you know your exact profit on literally day one.
Next up is Section 4, key terms you should know. Let's clear up some of that financial jargon.
First up, it is absolutely vital to separate these two terms in your mind. Face value is the full final amount you are guaranteed to receive when the maturity period officially ends. The purchase price, on the other hand, is the smaller, discounted amount you actually hand over out of your pocket today. So rule of thumb, always remember, you pay the purchase price, but you receive the face value.
Now, there are 3 common rate terms you're going to encounter, and they are super important to understand. First, the discount rate.
This is the quoted interest rate calculated based on the final face value. It determines exactly how big of a discount you get up front. Second is the stop rate. Because T-bills are sold at auctions where investors bid on yields, the stop rate acts as the auction's cutoff. It's basically the highest yield the central bank is willing to accept to fill their borrowing quota for that particular day. But here's the absolute most important term for you, the true yield. Some people call it the effective yield. This is your actual, real-world percentage return. Why? Because the true yield calculates your profit based on the smaller amount of money you actually invested, the purchase price, rather than the face value. So your true yield will always be slightly higher than the quoted discount rate, and honestly, it's the number you should care about most when evaluating what you're really getting back.
Bringing it all home, let's look at Section 5, the benefits of investing. What's really interesting about T-bills is the low-risk nature of the instrument. Because these are directly backed by the federal government of Nigeria, they come with a serious level of security. In the financial world, a sovereign government is generally considered the absolute safest entity to lend to within its own borders, mainly because it literally has the power to tax and manage its own currency. So what does that mean for you? It means the risk of you losing your initial capital is incredibly low, especially when you compare it to things like corporate stocks or bonds.
To summarize your main takeaways from this explainer, Treasury bills offer ultimate government-backed safety. They provide crystal-clear, predictable returns, where you know your exact profit from the moment you hit invest. They offer totally flexible timelines, whether that's 91, 182, or 364 days, giving you complete control over your cash flow. They are just unmatched for capital preservation, making sure your principal is protected while still earning a solid yield. And finally, they are incredibly easy to access. You can typically purchase them directly through your commercial bank or an approved stockbroker without any hassle at all.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a thought to really consider for your own financial planning. Is the idle cash sitting in your regular savings account working as hard as it could be, or even as hard as a government treasury bill? By leveraging T-bills, you have a straightforward, highly secure way to make your money actively work for you, backed by the government, all on a timeline you control. Thank you so much for joining me, and hey, here's to making informed, confident financial decisions.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.
Welcome back to the Explainer. Today we're jumping right into the critical second half of our deep dive into Nigerian Treasury Bills. If you caught part 1, you already know the absolute basics. But today, we're taking it to the next level. We are going to look at the real risks, break down the actual math, and walk you through the step-by-step investment process so you can navigate this whole landscape with total confidence.
Okay, so here is our quick roadmap for today. First, understanding the risks. Second, hidden costs and limitations. Third, a simple T-bill example. Fourth, how to invest now. And finally, number 5, is it right for you? Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Understanding the risks. We really have to start with a reality check here, because, look, absolutely no investment is completely risk-free, not even government-backed ones like Treasury bills. Understanding what can go wrong is honestly the hallmark of a smart investor. Looking at the risk dashboard we've put together, you can see a central shield, and it's surrounded by 6 very distinct risks. We're talking inflation, reinvestment, liquidity, currency, option, and interest rate concerns. Every single investor needs to confront these 6 factors before locking up a dime of their money. So let's unpack the most crucial ones so you know exactly what you're up against.
Right now, the absolute biggest threat out there is inflation risk. A Treasury bill might pay you a positive nominal return, but hey, if inflation is running hotter than that return, your money is actually losing ground. For instance, say your T-bill earns 17% for the year. Sounds fantastic, right? But if the cost of everyday goods and services shoots up even faster during that same time, well, you might end up with a larger stack of naira at the end, but you're effectively poorer in real value. Your purchasing power literally shrank.
Then, we've got liquidity and reinvestment risks. Because T-bills are short-term, you're constantly running into maturity dates. Say interest rates drop right before your bill matures. Well, you're going to have to reinvest that newly freed up cash at a lower return, which is a massive headache for anyone relying on this for predictable cash flow. And what if you suddenly need that cash before maturity? Actually, if you have to sell early on the secondary market, you might take a hit and sell at a lower price than you expected, especially if broader market rates just went up.
Finally, there's auction and allotment risk. Keep in mind, you don't always get exactly what you ask for at the primary auction. If your bid is simply too high compared to the accepted stop rate, which, by the way, is just the maximum interest rate the central bank is willing to pay, your bid might get tossed out entirely. And even if your bid does go through, the auction might be wildly oversubscribed. That means you might only get a small fraction of the amount you actually wanted to invest. You just have to be prepared that your cash might not be fully deployed.
All right, moving on to Section 2, Hidden Costs and Limitations.
Beyond those immediate auction rules, we really need to talk about the hidden opportunity costs of where you're parking your cash. The most crucial point. T-bills are strictly Naira denominated. Why is that a big deal? Well, if your future expenses are in a foreign currency, think international school fees, importing goods for your business, or even just international travel, these Naira returns might not do a thing to protect you against crazy exchange rate swings. You are leaving yourself wide open to severe currency and purchasing power risks.
Also, you really have to weigh the opportunity cost. Money locked in a T-bill is money sitting out of the game for higher potential business expansions, killer stocks, or real estate. You're basically trading potential massive growth for a cozy blanket of safety and predictability. And please, do not forget about platform and fee risks. Banks and ABS charge fees, and their secondary market rates can be way different from the primary auction. Always, and I mean always, ask your broker for the effective yield after they take their cut. You need to know your true bottom line profit.
Section 3, a simple T-bill example.
Okay, the whole concept of upfront discounts can be a bit of a head-scratcher, so let's simplify the math. Let's say you're an investor who wants to buy a Treasury bill with a face value of exactly 1 million Naira for a 364-day period. Keep that cool 1 million figure in your head, because the way you actually pay for this thing, it might really surprise you.
As you can see mapped out on this timeline, look at day 0 on the left. You, the investor, do not hand over 1 million Naira. Because T-bills are sold at a discount, you pay a price that is strictly less than 1 million today. Then you fast forward precisely 364 days later to maturity and boom, you receive the full 1 million Naira face value. Your profit was literally locked in from day 1.
It's literally the exact opposite of what we're all used to with a standard savings account. In a normal savings account, you hand over your principal today and the bank slowly drips interest on top of it over time. But with a T-bill, completely reversed. Your profit is simply the difference between the lower, discounted amount you pay right now and the full face value you get at the finish line. You're basically getting your interest paid to you upfront on day 1, which is a pretty sweet twist, right?
Section 4, how to invest now.
So, now that you know the math and the risks, how do we actually get this done? Let's look at the exact step-by-step procedure to get your money working. This journey takes you right from picking up the phone to contact an authorized dealer, like your bank or an investment app, all the way to the finish line, where you get to watch that full face value automatically drop into your account. Let's break these steps down so you can actually take action.
All right, breaking it down. Step 1, contact your bank or a licensed broker. Step 2, ask them for the current auction details and what the indicative rates are looking like. Step 3, figure out your investment amount and your tenor, which is just finance speak for how long the bill lasts, usually 91, 182, or 364 days. Step 4, submit your bid before the deadline hits. Step 5, if you win, your account is immediately debited for that discounted amount we just talked about. And finally, Step 6, you sit back, relax, and wait for maturity to automatically receive your full face value. Once you do it once, it's a wonderfully streamlined process.
And finally, Section 5. Is it right for you? We've covered the nuts and bolts, the math, and the market risks, but now we have to ask the absolutely most vital question of this entire explainer. Does a T-bill actually make sense for your life? Investors basically split into two completely different camps here. On one side, we've got folks who benefit massively from capital preservation and low-risk income. On the other side, we have a total negative fit. People who are actually hurting themselves by missing out on aggressive growth because their big life goals demand way higher returns. Let's look at how this shakes out. T-bills are an absolute home run for conservative investors who just want to protect their capital. If you're a salary earner trying to safely stash cash for a house down payment in 6 months, or maybe a business owner parking a temporary cash surplus, this is fantastic. However, they are a terrible fit if you want high, aggressive growth. If your goal is long-term generational wealth, like a big retirement portfolio, or if you desperately need returns that are going to be double-digit inflation year after year, honestly, T-bills are probably just going to hold you back.
So I'm going to leave you with this to chew on as you look at your own money.
Based on your current financial goals, does the short-term safety and absolute predictability of a Treasury bill truly serve your long-term future? Or do those hidden risks of inflation demand that you find a completely different, maybe more aggressive strategy for your wealth? Ultimately, it comes down to what you value most right now, safety today or purchasing power tomorrow. Think about it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy investing.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.
Welcome, everyone. Okay, if you're a focused learner looking to completely level up your financial game, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're walking through the ultimate playbook for transitioning from a passive saver to a strategic, highly effective investor in Nigerian Treasury Bills, or T-bills as we usually call them. We're going to take all the guesswork out of these short-term government securities and break down exactly how the pros monitor, manage, and really maximize their returns. Let's get right into it.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, tracking your T-bills. Second, smart investment strategies. Third, protecting your portfolio. And finally, the big picture. Section 1. Tracking your T-bills, the dashboard. All right, let's dive into this. There are 6 essential steps you really need to take to actively monitor your performance. First things first, know your holdings. Review your confirmation notes and keep meticulous records. Second, track those market yields so you can see where average interest rates are heading. Third, you've got to follow the primary market auctions. These typically happen on Wednesdays, just to see if bills are oversubscribed or undersubscribed. Fourth, monitor secondary market trading to understand the price movements of outstanding T-bills. Fifth, make sure to leverage online platforms and your bank apps for real-time market data. And finally, step 6, analyze economic news. Things like inflation and central bank policies. Now notice how this framework connects all those active verbs into a seamless, continuous loop. It's really like a giant puzzle. Knowing your holdings at the top left flows right into tracking yields and following auctions. You see, you aren't just reacting to the market here. By staying informed, using your apps, and reading financial reports, you're actively positioning yourself to maximize those returns. In practice, a smart investor's performance dashboard looks a lot like this. You aren't just glancing at the maturity date, you're actively tracking the expected return against your actual return. But here's the kicker. Look at that inflation comparison column. If your T-bill yields 5.5%, but inflation is at 2.1%, hey, you've got a positive real return. You're winning. But if your bill yields 6.3% and inflation suddenly spikes to 5.8%, well, your real wealth growth is actually shrinking. Tracking this data is exactly how you make cold, calculated decisions on whether to reinvest, hold, or just exit entirely. Section 2. Smart investment strategies. The mechanics. So here is an incredible overview of the highly practical tips we're about to break down. From matching your tenor to your goals to keeping your emergency cash completely separate, let's look a little closer at the most critical mechanics. First up is matching the tenor, or, the lifespan of the bill directly to your personal cash flow goals. It's a simple concept, but it's absolutely crucial. Use the 91-day bills for short cash needs. Use the 182-day bills for medium-term plans. And listen, only use those 364-day bills when you can comfortably afford to lock that money away for a full year. Please don't just chase a 364-day bill because the rate might look a tiny bit higher if you're actually going to need that cash to pay rent in 3 months. Okay, so a huge point here is understanding the jargon, specifically true yield versus the stop rate. Because Nigerian Treasury bills are sold at a discount, the quoted discount rate, the stop rate, is actually not the exact same thing as your final return. Think of it like buying something on sale. You buy the bill for less than its face value, and then you get the full face value at maturity. Because you're putting down a smaller upfront amount to get that return, your true yield is actually slightly higher than the quoted discount rate. So my advice? Always ask your bank or broker for the true yield and the exact Naira amount you'll need to pay up front. Next up is honestly one of my favorite wealth building strategies, building a ladder. Instead of dumping all your money into one single 364-day basket, you split your funds up across different tenors. So some in a 91-day, some in a 182-day, and so on. Why do this?
because it gives you regular maturities. You constantly have cash freeing up, which drastically improves your cash flow flexibility and reduces your reinvestment risk just in case interest rates suddenly drop. Section 3. Protecting your portfolio, the guardrails. Let's see how this builds on our previous strategies. This is part B of our practical investment tips, and it's really all about wealth preservation, asking the right questions, and keeping your eyes wide open when you're comparing alternatives like money market funds or fixed deposits. Listen closely to this one, guys. You absolutely must ask about fees and taxes. Your broker or your bank platform might be quietly charging custody fees, brokerage fees, or even really steep early liquidation charges. And honestly, it doesn't matter how high the promised interest rate is if the fees are just going to eat up all your profit. What ultimately matters is the net return, the actual, literal cash you get to keep in your pocket after every single deduction is made. And this means you have got to avoid chasing rates blindly. Seeing a massive interest rate is incredibly attractive. I know, we all love a high number. But if you ignore inflation, or if you completely ignore your own need for immediate liquidity, that high rate can quickly become a trap. Every single investment decision should be weighed against your personal goals and your overall portfolio balance. Which brings us to a massive, totally non-negotiable rule. We must firmly distinguish between investment capital and emergency savings. Do not, I repeat, do not invest money you might urgently need for rent, medical bills, school fees, or family emergencies into a T-bill. Treasury bills work best for funds you can comfortably leave totally untouched until maturity. If you mix up your emergency fund with your T-bill investments, those early liquidation fees we just talked about, yeah, they will punish you. Section 4. The big picture, holistic planning. Let me ask you a quick reality check question. Are Treasury bills the ultimate standalone investment strategy that is going to solve all your financial needs? Well, the answer is no. Treasury bills are a fantastic, simple, and super practical way to invest in short-term government securities, for sure. But they're just one tool on your tool belt. They are really best used as part of a balanced plan, not as your one and only investment strategy. Let's quickly recap what they do brilliantly. NTBs offer relative safety because, well, they're backed by the government, meaning they carry incredibly low risk. They offer predictable returns, so you know exactly what your interest is going to be right at maturity. And they offer flexible maturities of 91, 182, or 364 days, letting you perfectly plan your timeline. They are absolutely incredible for capital preservation. But to build true long-term wealth, just preserving your capital isn't always enough. You must always compare your expected T-bill returns against the rising cost of living. Yep, inflation. If inflation is outpacing your T-bill yield, you are technically losing purchasing power. And that's exactly why a robust, balanced plan requires mixing short-term instruments like T-bills with growth assets like stocks, real estate, or mutual funds alongside a completely separate, highly liquid emergency savings account. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Armed with this new knowledge, knowing exactly how to track yields, build cash-flowing ladders, calculate true net returns, and respect the strict boundary of emergency funds, how are you going to use this playbook to structure your very next investment? How will you outsmart inflation and build a truly balanced portfolio? The tools are now completely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep learning, keep tracking, and happy investing.
Welcome to the quiz section, Fastest Finger Edition.